It's going to be a party. So let's restart by playing, as people come in for the next minute or so, a little Adir Who.
Adir Hu, Ibne Beito Bekaro, Bimehera, Bimehera, Meyameinu Bekaro, Ele Bene, Bne Beito Bekaro. Bachurehu, Gadolehu, Ibne Beito Bekaro, Bimehera, Yameinu Bekaro, El Bene, Bne Beito Bekaro. Dagulehu, Ibne Beito Bekaro, Bimehera, Beyamenu Bekaro, Ele Bene, Beito Bekaro. Vakiku Zakayehu, Ibne Beito Bekaro, Bimehera, Beyameinu Bekaro, El Bene, Bne Beito Bekaro, Bne Beito Bekaro.
That's such a beautiful rendition of the Adir Who, and that shall start our session. And I guess we're going to put these. Well, give me 1 second to do this. I forgot to do this. There we go. And now, so I entitled this session, the Pesach Seder, the Passover meal with Cantor Ness, and that's the last I've heard is Who I Am. Welcome to our communal Seder. We have guests, all surprises, some from the past, and some who are colleagues and friends of mine, some who I've never met, but today, we celebrate together. So let's relax, welcome everybody in. It's going to be a balagan. Our Seder will be in the general order that the Seder encompasses, with the 15 sections that I will call out in their order. For the sake of brevity, we will today encapsulate some of the steps in order to have a look at some of the different traditions of various Seder traditions. The Seder night is more than just a commemoration of past miracles. It's a personal, kind of an exodus of the soul, if you may. There's spiritual energies that are brought about, the miracles that long ago are somehow reawakened in us. Freedom, at least for this wonderful meal, is in the air. So this story is about the journey from slavery to freedom and what that journey means. We're taught that not only did we each personally become free on the night of the first Passover, but we must, as we celebrate this holiday, we must again personally make a journey from that slavery, psychologically, spiritually, physically, to freedom each year on this Seder night. All who are hungry, come and eat, is a kind of a reminder that even while there is a feast in front of us, our neighbors are hungry. Our journey to freedom must include our neighbors. We can never truly be free until each and every one of us is free. So we try to remember how it felt to be enslaved. And so we invite all those who are poor, who are hungry, who lack sustenance, food, water, other nourishment, to sit with us at our tables. We invite them not just to eat, but to hear and tell with us the narrative of a people who took themselves away, extricated themselves with divine help and support from a place of sadness and despair to a place of hope and expansiveness. We share the matzah, the bread of affliction, and the story of moving out of slavery into freedom, that kind of consciousness. Let's begin the journey. So the first of those 15 steps is Kadesh. We now leave the normal life behind and transpose ourselves into a kind of a world of holiness. The first step toward freedom with a blessing over the first cup of wine with our first guest. We have guests from Morocco. Here is the Moroccan Kaddish.
אלה מועדי אדוני מקראי קודש, אשר תקראו אותם במועדם, סברי מרנן, ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם. בורא פרי הגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל עם, ורוממנו מכל לשון, וקידשנו במצוותיו. ותיתן לנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה, שבתות למנוחה, ומועדים לשמחה, חגים וזמנים לששון, את יום השבת הזה, את יום חג המצות הזה, את יום טוב מקרא קודש הזה, זמן חירותנו באהבה מקרא קודש, זכר נשיאת מצרים, כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, שבתות ומועדי קודשך, באהבה וברצון, בשמחה ובששון, הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת בישראל הזמנים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Beautiful. And obviously he mentioned Shabbat, so he obviously didn't understand that the first seder happens on Saturday night this year. But having said that, what you're looking at now, and I would advise you, if you'd like to look at the pictures, the photos too, because they do tell a story. This is a seder in Italy with some Italian children who were Jewish children who were thrown out of their homes during World War II. So who knows what happened to them in the end, but this is a picture of a seder. And I say Italian because it was in Italy, and it's so difficult to really describe what is Sephardic, what is Ashkenazic, but I would say Italian is, in my mind, on the Sephardic side. That can be debated, certainly. So we move on to the next section, which is called urchatz. Oh, this is the meal. We're not going to eat just yet, but we will have a taste of some of this wonderful food. Not just yet. This is urchatz, the washing of the hands. So why do we wash our hands? It's with an idea of purification, just like the priest did in the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple. One pours the water 3 times over the right hand, and then 3 times over the left hand. I'm a lefty, so I'm a rebel. I pour it over the left first, but that's just my thing. Next, that is number 2. So that is the idea, the purification idea. Number 3, karpas, dipping the vegetable into salt water. Most Seder plates today in my experience, use parsley or celery, but that symbolizes the arrival of springtime. It is the 22nd of March, spring, and a new life. It also represents the initial settlement and flourishing of the Israelites during their first years in Egypt. So this is the reason for this is that celebrants can taste the hope of a kind of a new birth, along with the bitterness, the bitter tears of the slaves, the Israelite slaves in Egypt. So that's karpas. So we're on number 3. We move to number 4, and this is yachatz, which is you take the hold, exactly as in the photo, you take the hold in the middle of the 3 matzahs on your seder plate, the ones in the, you have the matzah cover with the 3 levels, okay? We need the top matzah to remain whole, okay? We'll be making a blessing about it later, as as the seder goes on. We'll talk about that. So the middle matzah we break in 2, and we leave the smaller half between the 2 complete matzahs. Okay, so you have 3 matzahs, you break the middle 1 and 2, and whatever you do with the other one, you kind of hide it. That's for another story. The piece that remains on the seder plate is the poor man's bread. The poor man's bread, over which the story of our slavery is spoken. Okay. 1 second. So now we move on to the Magid. Magid. This is the telling of the story of Israel leaving Egypt. This is what it's all about. This is why it's called a Haggadah, which means a telling. So you can see the Haggadah Magid, Lehagid, Magid, the telling of the story of leaving Egypt. Now we get to what is called, the real tachlis, the meat and potatoes of the seder. Not necessarily what our stomachs are yearning for at this point, but we give it a little time, and then we will partake of the meat and potatoes of the dinner too. So you could probably smell them simmering in the kitchen right now, I'm sure. So halach ma'anya, during the Magid portion, this portion of the Passover Seder, this is the 5th of the 15 sections of the Seder, we tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt. It begins with the uncovering and lifting of the matzah on the Seder table and the recitation of this beautiful piyut, halach ma'anya. These words are written in Arabic, and it basically talks about, here the sentence, this is the bread of affliction that our ancestors ate in Egypt. Here it is, the bread. We demonstrate, okay? The reflection is based on Devarim, Deuteronomy, I believe it's chapter 16, and I forgot the verse, but it's based on that section. You shall eat unleavened bread of ani, which means distress, bread of distress, because you departed the land of Egypt in such a rush. And this is the first explanation in the Haggadah for matzah on Passover. We have a guest, another guest. They just come in, and we'll just, we have to. The door's open, so whoever comes in, let's see. The guy's name, I know him. Okay, I don't know him personally, but we all know him. His name is Moshe Oisher. Okay, he was born in Bessarabia in 1906. Passes away in New Rochelle, New York in 1958. One of the great cantors for many of us, just an incredible voice. He's a Yiddish actor is what he really is. And I think he's a comedian. I mean, the guy's incredibly funny the way he does things. He stars in Yiddish films. In 1943, he signs a contract to perform several roles with the Chicago Opera Company. I'm not sure if it's a lyric opera, but it's one of the opera companies in New York. We'll leave that for a later day when we can do some research on that. Let's just get to him. Halach ma'anya, Moshe Oisher.
יחיפין ייתי ויכול ייתי ויכול כל ורד צריך ייתי וייסור כל ורד צריך ייתי וייסור أشدك خلشان أباب يا رد إسرائيل لشان أباب يا رد إسرائيل لشان أباب يا رد إسرائيل أشد بدل شان أباب يخول
Okay, now after Moshe Arsher sings this beautiful piyut, I just, across the table, there's another gentleman from Morocco who wants to do his version. This is a cultural seder, so let's allow it. Let's be gracious. That's one of the things about a seder. We have to be gracious and allow people to relax and be themselves. So here is the Moroccan Halach Ma'anya.
בבילו יצאנו ממצרים, הלך מעניה בני חורין. בבילו יצאנו ממצרים, הלך מעניה בני חורין. הלך מעניה יאכלו אבהתנה בערעד מצרים. כל דכפין יתה ויכול, כל דצריך יתה ויפסח, השתך לשנה הבאה בערעדי ישראל, השתך עבדם לשנה הבאה בערעדי ישראל, בני חורין.
That was so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we move on to now the manish. First of all, after he says that, I just want to say, Kilo na'eh, kilo ya'eh. God's praise is due. God's praise is fitting, no matter who sings that halach anya. Now we move to manish dana. I'm going to give a little lecture on this because it's a fascinating, they're all fascinating, but this is equally fascinating. Where did the melody come from? So we know this text, by the way, is one of the oldest in the Haggadah, from Babylonian Talmud Seder Moed, from the Mishnah, Seder Moed, Pesachim, the Mishnah chapter. The answers to the four questions are, the first question is, why do we eat matzah? So we eat matzah because our ancestors could not wait for their breads to rise, as we heard in the Halach Ma'anya. Also, we eat maror, a bitter herb. Why? To remind us of the bitterness of slavery. And then the third one is the first dip. Why do we have vegetables in salt water? That symbolizes the replacing our tears with gratitude. And the second dip, the maror in the charoset, which we will have a little later, symbolizes the sweetening of our burden of bitterness and suffering. The fourth is, why do we lean to our, I think it's the right side, I'm a lefty, but we can talk about that later. In ancient times, a person who reclined at a meal was a free person, while slaves and servants stood. That's ironic in the story of Pesach, by the way, slaves and servants. Why? We'll talk about that another time in another lecture. There was a fifth question, which is, why do we eat roasted meat? Because that is how the Pesach lamb was prepared during the sacrifice in the temple. But that was, over the course of time, taken away for a number of reasons. One, because, the four different sons and the four questions, and there's a lot of fours in the Pesach Seder. let's talk about the melody for a second. The teacher in a malamed, in a cheder, okay, Eastern European mostly, would call out to his students in a kind of a study mode. It was kind of a sing-song chant of not a lot of pitches. And I'll demonstrate. The traditional Ashkenazic music for the four questions is a chant known as the Lernensteiger. Okay, it's a kind of a very simple melody, resembles kind of the method used, the method used to chant the Talmudic passages in traditional yeshivas, traditional yeshivot. So you had bochrim, who were students who were always encouraged to ask a good question because the question is more important than the answer in a lot of these studies. And this is why the melody is used for the four questions, because the text of the four questions comes from the Mishnah, Talmud, and they use that kind of melodic flow to do that. We'll little more. Whatever melody or text your family may use, there are other questions you can ask with this. You can add on questions onto the four questions. So let us talk a little more about the Lernsteiger, the study mode, as a device for studying text. Once learned by students in the classroom, this same melody soon found its way into the home and becomes an integral part of the Passover seder. Now, here it goes. Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol haleilot shebechol haleilot anu ochlin chametz umatzah halayla hazeh kulo matzah. Or I can say, I don't have Talmud, the text in front of me, but this is an actual Talmud text, right, from Mishnah. You could say, why do we eat matzah? Because today. Why is it like it is? Because it is like it is, because I said so, whatever the text said. But that's the kind of melody that was used to study Talmud in general. It's just that this was part of the Talmud, so they used that melody. According to a dear colleague and friend of mine, Dr. Eliyahu Schleifer, he's really one of the finest musicologists, and he's director of the Jerusalem Hebrew Union College cantorial program. I don't know if he's there anymore, but he's really one of that I haven't spoken to him in a long time, and I feel almost guilty about it, because I do feel guilty. He's a fabulous human being, and I want to. There's so much to learn from him. Anyway, he says there was an Israeli tune that everybody calls an Israeli tune, which is not an Israeli tune. The real melody was written by Ephraim Bilea in 1936. Before we do that, before we talk about that, I want to play Eliyahu Schleifer singing with a real Eastern European sense that Manishtana in the Lernensteiger. If I can find it. Oh, here we go. Missed. Got it.
מה נשתנה? 4 קושיות בנוסח אשכנז, תחילה בנוסח פשוט. partake ולפרק נפיר קשס. מה נשתנו הלילה הזה מכל הלילות? שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים חומץ ומצות, הלילה הזה כולו מצות. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים שאור ירוקויס, הלילה הזה כולו מורוי. שבכל הלילות אין אנו מטבילין אפילו פעם אחת, הלילה הזה שתי פעמים. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים בין יושבין ובין מסובין, הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין.
I just want to say one more thing about this wonderful man. He was a colleague of my teacher, Chaim Feifel, who really persuaded me all the time to learn more, to do more research, to do, just he never, I used to sing, I did Mariv one time for Chaim. I'm going away from the story right now, but I did Mariv for my teacher, Chaim Feifel. And he said, oh, it's very nice. Now do it on one note. What one note? I mean, that's not the nusach, but he was totally right, because it allowed me to feel the inner rhythms for that day, for that time I did it, which would be different than the inner rhythms for another time of the text. Anyway, that's another story, but Chaim Feifel and Eli Schleifer were colleagues for many years. Chaim passed a few months ago. Alav Shalom, wonderful, wonderful, incredible teacher. Moving on. So he mentioned, this man mentions that the real melody of the Manishtana, Manishtana, was written by a guy by the name of Ephraim Abilea in 1936. He was in Israel. He's born in Russia in 1881. So he's, I don't know, 55, something like that. Prior to relocating to Palestine, he was known, and it's the guy, if I can use my arrow, if you can see on the left, this guy right here, holding his mother Leah, Fega, and then here's Ari, and here's Baruch, all musicians, but this is the person we're talking about right here, Ephraim Abilea. So he's known as Leo Nesvitsky. He was known primarily for being one of the founders of the Society for Jewish Folk Music in St. Petersburg, Russia, and I tell you something, the music of those composers is stunning, and it's criminal that it's not done much more. Certainly, I have orchestrated many of the songs of Joel Engel and others too, and I'm committed to doing more of that, if only to bring it out into the public. It's fabulous music. Anyway, that's nothing to do. Not that he wrote some of that stuff, but he started that organization, one of the people. So he goes to Israel in, I think, by way of Egypt in 1922. By the way, these boys' father was a cantor, and so they had a real intimate knowledge of the study modes, or that we just talked about, the Lernensteiger. However, he writes, when he comes to Israel, he writes an oratorio. He's a good musician, pianist. Writes Chag HaChirut, meaning Festival of Freedom, Passover. Okay, so it was written by him and performed only once in Haifa in the same year, 1936. So let me just demonstrate his Manishtana and how, and we could talk about this for many sessions, how a melody gets kind of transmogrified as it goes through various publishing companies and everything. But here it goes. If I can demonstrate with my voice. Manishtana halayla hazeh. No, is that right? Manishtana. Yeah. Halayla hazeh mikol haleilot, mikol haleilot, shebechol haleilot. Let me try it again. Manishtana halayla hazeh mikol haleilot. Beautiful. Mikol haleilot, shebechol haleilot anu ochlin hametz umatzah, and then hametz, and then halayla hazeh kulo matzah. It's part of that oratorio. Halayla hazeh kulo matzah. Now it gets all the publishing companies want to use it because they think it can catch on. But this is how it's remembered. He writes Manishtana. They don't use the fifth. They go Manishtana halayla hazeh. Instead of Mikol haleilot, which is beautiful, they also do Mikol haleilot. See how they change it? His is Mikol haleilot. There's the Israeli way is Mikol haleilot, and the rest is pretty much simple, the same. Halayla hazeh, kulo matzah, etc. Okay, so I'm just giving you the kind of the history, how a song, as a composer writes it. And by the way, we're talking about Abilea now and Manishtana. You can talk about Solomon Zulzer. This is another subject in his writing of the Shema. The Shema melody, and we don't sing it anyway like it was written. So beside that, but moving on. Here, oh my God, we have some more guests. What are you going to do? Okay. These guests are, come on in. Yeah. we're inviting everybody to the seder. I'd like to, these guests behave like kids, but let's deal. They sing very well. They're a little older than kids. Come on in.
מה נשתנה הלילה הזה מכל הלילות, מכל הלילות, שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים חמץ ומצה. הלילה זה כולו מצה. הלילה זה כולו מצה. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים שאר ירקות, שאר ירקות. הלילה זה מרור, מרור. הלילה זה מרור, מרור. שבכל הלילות איננו מבינים אפילו פעם אחת, אפילו פעם אחת. הלילה זה שתפת עמים. הלילה זה שתפת עמים. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים ביושבנו ומסובים, ביושבנו ומסובים. הלילה זה כולנו מסובים. הלילה זה כולנו מסובים.
Okay, they behave like kids, but they can sing. You have to admit, these are the Maccabees, just that in case any of you did not know, they're a wonderful group. Okay, I can see that someone else. Look, okay. Yeah, I'd like you to introduce you to Eliyahu Bonamo. He wants to sing his version from the kitchen because he's helping prepare the meal. So if it's okay, he'll sing from there. This is a wonderful gentleman from Turkey. Also, Manishtana.
Cuánto fue demudada la noche la esta, más que todas las noches, que en todas las noches nosotros no juntamos a filo una vez, y la noche la esta dos veces. Que en todas las noches nosotros comemos james o matzá, y la noche la esta todo es masá. Que en todas las noches nosotros comemos restos de vidruras, y la noche la esta todo es lechuga. Que en todas las noches nosotros comemos y bebemos, tanto asentados y tanto descordados. Y la noche la esta somos todos descordados.
So that was beautiful. There's a simplicity. By the way, that was in Ladino, as you probably all recognize. There's a real beautiful simplicity, purity, I think is the word, in some of that music. Without instruments, without any extra fare. Beautiful stuff. So we now go to Vihi She'amda. So Vihi She'amda is a short passage in the Haggadah that deals with saving the people of Israel by the Creator from all their enemies. It's customary to sing the passage and with a melody, and today it's very prevalent as a piyut on its own. the text is something like, this is the Torah that stood by our ancestors and for us. For not only one enemy has risen against us, but in every generation, we have to be careful. Let's welcome some kids from the Jerusalem Boys Town Choir. This is a very, very special organization and a beautiful rendition, the Hishamda. Beautiful. And so memory and action, that's pretty much the goal with the seder. On Passover, there are stories and rituals to remember, and then we recall that narrative of our collective liberation. We share the stories so they're remembered not only for us, but for future generations, as they were in the past generations, as a story, as a directive from slavery to freedom. So in Hebrew, Egypt is called Mitzrayim, which means a narrow place. The process of Exodus moving from a narrow place to a place of freedom. A quote from Martin Luther King Jr., "No one is free until we are all free." No one is free until we are all free. And the big question, how can we move from that narrow place? How can we do? It's nice to say it. How can we move from the narrow place to a place that we are all free? How many and what kind of plagues do we have now in our present time? Racism, greed, disease, climate issues, so many things. Avadim hayinu lefaro b'Mitzrayim. Chorim. We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. Now we are free. That's the goal. Memory, action. Debbie, I'd like you to join us. And if you can sing now, that would be a beautiful thing. If I could find, hold on, where is she? Oh, there she is. Okay.
עבדים היינו, היינו, אתה בני חורין, בני חורין. עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין. עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין, בני חורין. אתה בני חורין, בני חורין. עבדים היינו, היינו, אתה בני חורין, בני חורין. עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין. עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין, בני חורין. אתה בני חורין, בני חורין. עבדים היינו, היינו, אתה בני חורין, בני חורין. עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין. עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין, בני חורין. אתה בני חורין, בני חורין.
Beautiful. That was very, very nice, Debbie. Now we go to the 10 plagues. Speaking of the plagues, and I guess it's really very poignant this year. The plagues are blood, dams, frogs, svardea, kinim, vermin, kinim, beast, arov, cattle, disease, dabar, boils, shechin, hail, barad, locust, arbe, darkness, choshech, and makat bechorot, slaying of the firstborn. It is a custom, I'm sure we probably all do it, put our fingers in the cup, our wine cups, and drop a drop on the plate next to it. Certainly not on the tablecloth, because we just don't want to incur those kind of expenses cleaning. So with that, Dayenu, enough. It would have been enough is a song traditionally sung during the telling of the story of Exodus at the Passover seder, obviously. The song stanzas display the many wonderful, powerful, life-affirming deeds that God performed for the Israelites during the Exodus, or during when they left Egypt and after. It ends each stanza with the word Dayenu. It would have been enough. And who do we have now? I think we have a wonderful friend of mine. Let's listen. Binyamin Schechter is a wonderful musician. He has the Jewish People's Philharmonic Chorus. It's a chorus that specifically sings Yiddish in Yiddish. And it's a very specialized chorus. And he's a wonderful musician. I know him from, I think, 35, 40 years ago when we sang together with Mati Lazar in a number of choirs together, him and his sister, actually. So he's a real sweetheart and a wonderful musician. And let's talk about Dayenu a little. There's a kind of an irony with it would have been enough to maybe we have had enough. Dayenu, with all the inequality, disease, racism, and the lack of just the ability to speak to each other with common decency. Well, something to think about and take action about. In the Haggadah, the Psalms of Hallel are present. All of them from 113 through 118. The first two, 113 through 114, are recited before our meal, and we will have the meal in a few minutes. And the last four, 115 through 118, are done just after the Birkat Hamazon, which is, for those of you who don't know the term, the grace after meals. So a stunning rendition of Psalm 113. We have that by the very wonderful and underrated composer Yecheskel Braun, who can be considered a representative of the generation of Israeli composers immediately following Paul Ben Chaim, Mark Lavry, and that generation. That was the generation after Joel Engel and others of his ilk. So he was born in Breslau, by the way. This is Yecheskel Braun. Historically and culturally, as well as politically, at that time, part of Germany, Breslau, now is Wrocław, Poland. 2 years later, his parents immigrates to Palestine. He's 2 years old. He begins his studies at the Israel Academy of Music, where he studies with Alexander Boscovich. I would call him a very, very important composer, and a kind of a transition between Engel and Lavry, and that probably, the Lavry generation, but a real transition person. Wonderful. Anyway, but we're talking about Braun. Braun also earns a master's degree in Greek and Latin philology at Tel Aviv University. He's a very intelligent guy. He harbors a lifelong interest both in Hebrew subjects and Gregorian chant. Actually, I should say Hebrew chant and Gregorian chant. There is a connection, which we don't have time to talk about now. So in 75, he spends a year at the Benedictine monastery at Solsmes, France. He studies Gregorian chant there. 1966, he becomes professor of music at Tel Aviv University, a post where he held until his retirement. A really wonderful composer whose choral music is special to my ears. He passes away in 2014, I believe, at the age of 91. So I think he was born in 1922. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Adei Adonai. Psalm 113, praise, O ye servants of the Lord, praise the name of the Lord. And there's more text, but here is the seventh and eighth psukim of sentences of this psalm. Who raiseth up the poor out of the dust, and lifteth up the needy out of the dunghill. That's 7. 8, that he may set him with princes, even with the princes of the people. Very Passover oriented. You could see that. Raiseth up the poor out of the dust, releases them from their slavery. This is a fabulous piece of music. With all these photographs and everything are Israeli musicians. So let's give it a whirl. Yeah, beautiful piece. Very quintessential Israeli. It's there's no other, yes, it's derivative of other composers, but that is so totally Israeli sounding to my ears, Now we come to the second cup of wine. A blessing is said, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Haolam, Borei Peri Agafen. I'm just singing it quickly for you. And then that after the second cup, there's something called rochza, which is, again, we wash our hands. This is, again, the process of transcending and purifying over and over again, higher and higher, then draw that into the good deeds that we are capable of, rising higher again, and even more. So you pour, again, the water over the left or right hand, whatever, 3 times and 3 times the other. And then you say, blessed be you, Lord our God, King of the world, who has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us concerning the washing of the hands. This is the normal blessing, Nitilat Yadayim, okay? The first time we did not say that blessing. Now we do because we're getting close to eating. And you must be all hungry, I would assume. Motzi matzah. You grab there's 4 on the top, but you grab the 3 matzahs, those 3, remember the ones in the bag? So the top one, the broken middle one, remember that? And the bottom one, you pick them up a little and you say the blessing, blessed be you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings bread out of the earth, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, okay? And that's number 7. The next one is number 8, motzi, that's 7. 8 is matzah. You put down the bottom matzah, you recite the blessing on the whole matzah and the broken matzah, which is, blessed be you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us concerning eating matzah, okay? So, and you eat the matzah, just the matzah while reclining. Next comes, there we go, maror, bitter herbs. You grab some of the bitter herb. Obviously, it is to remind us of the years of slavery in Egypt. I'm going to move on a little quicker because there's so much more music we want to do. We also want to eat. The next thing is the korech. Hold on for a second. Yeah, the korech, which I did not list here, but it's, you break off the 2 pieces from the bottom matzah, and you take a kind of a bitter herb and place it between the 2 pieces. You mix some of the horseradish and lettuce. You drop the bitter herb in a little charoseh. You don't want to do too much because you want to feel the bitterness of it, and that's what Hillel did, supposedly at the time of the temple stood. He wrapped up some Pesach lamb, some matzah, and some bitter herbs and ate them together. Okay, then let's talk. Let's say one other thing. I want to introduce you to this wonderful scene from a movie written in 1941, and it's, I can't, unfortunately, I don't remember the name of it, but it was a movie about making movies. But this scene is incredibly special, and maybe we could say a few words afterwards. The song you will all know. The irony of what you will see here, for me, brings the challenges of Pesach very close to my heart. Now, why don't we just watch it? And it's not a long thing.
Well, brothers and sisters, once again, we're going to have a little entertainment. I guess I don't have to tell you what it is. The sheet kind of gives it away. And once again, brothers and sisters, we're going to share our pleasure with some neighbors less fortunate than ourselves. Won't you please clear the first 3 pews so they may have seats? And when they get here, I'm going to ask you once more, neither by word, nor by action, nor by look, but to make a guest feel unwelcome, nor draw away from, or act high tone. For we is all equal in the sight of God. Amen. And he said, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. Yeah. The chain shall be struck from them, and the lame shall leap, and the blind shall see, and glory in the coming of the Lord. Now let's give our guests a little welcome. When Israel Then Israel out of Egypt came. Let my people go. On the left, the proud oppressor's land. Let my people go down, go there, way down in Egypt land.
For me, very powerful. There's a movie called Sullivan's Travels. It was made in 1941, but the beautiful thing about it's not beautiful, it's poignant, where you see, obviously the black people have been slaves. Obviously, the Civil War was about, certainly, but here, based on Martin Luther King Jr.'s statements that no one is free unless everybody is free, those white people that come in were in chains. They were the slaves. And maybe they were the slaves because no one is free until we are all free, based on the history of this country. I'm talking about the United States, certainly. This clip there's so much to talk about. I have to move on, otherwise we're going to really be a long time. So quickly, we eat the korech, the sandwich of bitter herbs. This sweet little girl, it's that's part of it. Okay, then we do matzah and charoset. There you put the charoset in the matzah. We're going to move on quickly. We're getting to the meal. Here, the shulchan aruch, the meal. Everybody's happy, and we're eating. We have a menu for you, by the way, so get ready to eat. We're starting with gefilte fish, right? It's good, that's a beautiful thing. Looks good. Then we'll give you a little chicken soup with some knedlach, matzah balls for Passover, obviously. Then we have, I think we're going to give you some chicken with coconut crust, chicken fingers, that's for Passover. Those of you who would like to eat a little more red meat, we have a red wine braised short ribs with prunes recipe. You getting hungry? By the way, I have the recipes for all these things. So if you want, talk to me later. Then for those of us who want to have a little Sephardic taste, we have Algerian meat patties for Passover. That looks good. Those of you who are vegetarians, we have roasted butternut squash with orange tahini, walnuts, and za'atar. Boy, this is really good stuff. Then we move on to, oh my God. Who's this? Oh, this is another guest. Okay, while we're eating, Cantor Gideon Zellermeyer. Hi, how are you? Why do you have to dress like that? I know you were here, but I know you came from davening from the shul. Okay, now that looks better, but can you give me a little better, just relax a bit. You don't have to have a bow tie. The Passover seder is to relax. Oh, okay, beautiful. That's more like it. By the way, everyone, if you don't mind, Gideon and I will sing a duet. It's called Haggadah, and it's by a wonderful composer by the name of Zavel Zilberts. I could talk a lot about him. He's one of the great Jewish composers of certainly the middle part of the 20th century. One of his most famous pieces is the Kiddush. It's spectacular. But anyway, we're going to listen to a piece called Haggadah. I orchestrated it many years ago. Gideon Zellermeyer, who's one of the great cantors in the world, was, 21, 22 when he sang it with me. A long time ago. So while you eat, let's listen to our little duet, Haggadah.
לך
Well, aren't you happy that I am that Gideon showed up? Thank you, Gideon. Wonderful singing, wonderful singing. Pleasure singing with you. And we move on. We're going to go a little quicker now. Let's just look at some desserts. This is some matzah toffee I have for you. Some salted caramel macaroons. I'm sure you'll like those. Some matzah tiramisu in case you haven't. You can make some tiramisu for Passover. I am a cook on hire. And also some chocolate macaroon cake. Okay, so I hope that will satisfy your palates for the time. And we move on to safun, eating the afikoman. This is right after the meal. We eat the afikoman before the barech, which is obviously the birkat hamazon, these grace after meals after there it is, that people are ready to say grace after meals after they eat the afikoman. We were going to move on very quickly. I don't know if I'm going to play you the whole thing, but here is our next friend, and we do right after the barech, the kiddush, and we have a rather interesting singer in his own right. Well, I think I have to make any comments, but Kiddush, Richard Tucker, I believe the conductor is Sholem Secunda. Certainly the orchestration is. So this is the, what is it, third or fourth? The third Kiddush Cup. And we have someone doing the fourth too. And we move on. The next thing that happens is, well, why don't we try? Oh my God, we just did Hallel. Let's move on. We did the last 4 Psalms of Hallel. Remember, the first 2 were done before we eat, and the last 4 are done in their own place, which is called Hallel. That's the 14th of the steps for the Pesach Seder. We are one more to go. One more to go. We do. These are cousins, you know, that Richard Tucker and Jan Pierce are cousins. If you don't mind, Jan wants to show us how he sings now. So, you know, look, he's good. I have to admit it. He's good. Here, let's listen to a little. I'm going to push toward the end as we go. These are rather not long pieces, but they're involved pieces. But for our lecture, we're going to have to cut. So, 4th cup of wine.
che avonno pagato e sono chidato
As I said, these are beautiful, beautiful arrangements. Both Pierce and Tucker, they were on some levels rivals, but they were cousins by way of marriage. So with that, we move on. We're almost done. There's Eliyahu Hanavi. Let me just play. This is a beautiful arrangement by a conductor that is conducting, and I believe she's with a not East. What's the one in Philadelphia? Curtis Institute of Music. She's a wonderful musician. She's Russian-born, I believe. This is Eliyahu Hanavi, the no. Now you can tell this was made very, very, very recently because, you know, with the virtual choirs that we've had to do. I'm, you know, they're fun in a way, but it's a lot of work, a lot of work making that work, getting everybody to sing together. But that has been our situation this year. So moving on quickly. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, the tune of Adir Hu has gone several transformations over the years. The original melody is from the German Minnesinger period. So we're talking medieval time. So the earliest extant music of Adir Hu is from this Rit Angle Haggadah of 1644. And the second version, which was from a Haggadah written even earlier in 1505, but redone in 1644, the second, which had the music. And then the Darmstadt Haggadah, it might, I think it might be called the Zelig Haggadah too. I'm not 100% sure of that. That also had a version. We're going to not talk about that now. We could at another time. Oh, we have another guest. Shlomo Carlebach comes in. Let's just listen to a little, what he wants to do his own Adir Hu. Not the melody we know, but let's give it a shot.
Adir Hu, Adir Hu, Adir Hu. Adir ye 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 Hu. Adir ye 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 Hu. Adir ye Hu. Adir Hu, Adir Hu, Adir Hu. Adir Hu, Adir Hu, Adir Hu, Adir Hu, Adir Hu, Adir Hu.
etc. It moves on. We're going to go on to, there are a few other ones I wanted to, we're going to skip the Yeroham Gaon one, but I want to talk about these guys. This is Cantor Daniel Mutlu of Central Synagogue in New York. I had the absolute pleasure, and more than that, the fortune of, I did this program on, I recomposed and orchestrated some of the pieces of one of the great cantors, Leib Glantz, and I really mean at the top, sui generis of all cantors. Anyway, the music was extremely difficult, and we had someone to sing it, but 3 weeks before the concert, he had to back out for a good reason, and I didn't know who to get, and I called Cantor Jackie Mendelson, some of you may know, and we talked. I said, "Well, you mentioned a guy by the name of Daniel Mutlu before, and this guy is at the top of the game, incredible cantor." So this is his son, and this should be, his name is Saya. And let's see how there are, dear who, as a duet, Cantor Daniel Mutlu and his son. I will play the whole thing. It's worth it.
Dear who.
And I think sooner or later,
Happy Passover, everybody.
Oh, I think sooner or later, happy Passover, Saya. Sooner or later, we're going to bring those here to West Hartford, hopefully. By the way, Adir Hu is one of those cumulative songs. So in other words, it starts, one is God, 2 are the tablets, 3 are the patriarchs, 4 are the matriarchs, and it goes on and on. It gets longer and longer and longer as it goes. It's a wonderful tune sung just about at the end of the seder. And now we're going to do Echad Miodea. Very quickly, another one of those ones right at the end of the seder. It's a beautiful piece. Let's try that.
אחד מי יודע, אחד אני יודע. אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ. שניים מי יודע, שניים יודע.
And we go on to now, we, I want to finish at 1:30. Hopefully we can. We're going to skip the Richard Tucker Had Gadya. It's a beautiful one. I want to do this one. This is a wonderful singer from Israel, Ofra Chaza. I'm not going to give her bio. She's not around anymore. It's a tragic ending, but she's such a beautiful singer. This is her version of Had Gadya, another one of those cumulative songs. Had Gadya. And we just have one more version of the Chad Gadya. Well, actually, let me just play a little of this. This is one in Hebrew, actually, not in Aramaic. Chad Gadya has some problems in terms of the person who wrote the poem was not exactly, he kind of switched Hebrew and Aramaic almost haphazardly. We can talk about that in another lecture. I keep saying that, but that's a fascinating subject. But just listen to a little minute of this, and we're going to end one piece after this. it's one for children. It's really, I love it. We're going to skip the Moshe Oisher one. And we're going to skip the Natani Hershig one, which is fabulous. But we're going to go very quickly because we don't have much time. This is L'Shana Haba'ah Yerushalayim. This is called Nirtzah, next year in Jerusalem. And I bid you a farewell. Thank you so much for listening to this. And until next time, what can I say? Thank you all. You can open your microphones. Open your mic-
Cantor. Hi,
Yes.
Cantor.
Hey,
Hi, it's Roz. Can I tell you something?
yes.
Moisher Oisher, when I was a little girl and my parents took me to Second Avenue often, he
Mhm.
was, you were right, not only a great singer, but a comedian.
Oh,
And I used to imitate, he used to put his hands behind his back and his head down, and he would have a certain funny walk, and I used to imitate him to make my family laugh.
I want to tell you something. There are more stories which we won't tell about him right now, but maybe we could do that privately.
Okay,
I don't know. He was a very interesting person. Alex, I'm so touched that you're here. I don't know what to say.
I'm not.
You're unmuted, Bruce.
Joseph, I just want to tell you that you are a blessing to everybody that knows you.
right.
Unbelievable.
Amen.
There's so much more that, it's like I have a lesson to have to give. And so like I had to cut things short, but we can do a whole lecture on Chad Gadya and I'm ready. I'm actually ready to do it.
Absolutely wonderful.
Amen.
Eisenstadt's
Al-
cantata.
Oh, absolutely. No question. No question. By the way, Alex, do you know Benjamin Meisner?
Yes. Do I know Benjamin Meisner?
By the way, these
I
are
love him. It's my brother.
two of my dearest colleagues. By the way, so is Marshall, so is Albert, so is Ruth, Roz, everybody.
Marshall.
Annette.
Joseph, I'll talk to you soon. I got to run. I'm sitting at the computer since 9 in the morning.
Oh my God. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much, Joseph.
Great program.
Joseph,
Great seder.
Hag Sameach. Hag
Hag
Sameach.
Sameach to everyone.
Hag
Wonderful presentation.
Take care,
Hag
everybody.
Sameach, everyone.
Thank you,
Joseph.
Joseph.
Joseph,
All
is
that
this
you
Hag
do.
recorded?
Sameach.
Joseph, is this recorded?
I think it is. I don't
Well,
know.
it could be shown again at night so others can watch it.
Yeah, it'd be nice. What can I, look, it takes me about 30 to 40 hours to prepare these things. It's a lot of work.
Well,
Well,
we
it
could tell.
Shows, it all shows.
It shows.
It
They are all
shows.
recorded and they're hosted on the BEMA website. I'm not sure how soon this will get uploaded.
Great.
but all
By
the
good.
the way, I
past
just
are
have
on
to
the
say
BEMA
one more
website.
thing. I want to definitely thank my assistant, Paul Logan. He's been with us all these weeks and he kind of makes sure that you behave.
Oh, never.
Joseph, thank
Please
you for all that you do.
Well,
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
It's all about making trouble.
Yasher Noach. A good Pesach for all.
A
Take
good
care,
and Pesach.
God
good-
bless him.
Aziz and Pesach, everyone.
Aziz and Pesach.
Gesund Pesach. Yeah.